Princeton, New Jersey, April 18, 1955. Inside a hospital room, Albert Einstein was dying. Within hours, the world would lose one of the greatest scientific minds in history. But what happened next would turn his death into one of the strangest posthumous stories ever told. Because when Einstein died, one man took something he was never supposed to keep, his brain, and for decades, it would disappear into jars, boxes, labs, car trunks, and private rooms. This is the story of the man who stole Einstein's brain. Einstein died at Princeton Hospital at the age of 76. He had suffered an abdominal aortic aneurysm, and he had already made peace with death. He did not want his body turned into a public shrine. He wanted to be cremated, quietly, privately, no spectacle, no relics, no worship. But in the hours after his death, that plan began to break. The pathologist on duty was Thomas Harvey. He was not famous, not powerful, not the kind of man history was supposed to remember. But he had access to Einstein's body at the one moment when almost nobody was looking. And during the autopsy, Harvey removed Einstein's brain. He also removed Einstein's eyes, though the brain would become the center of the story. The official explanation would later become science. But at that moment, the truth was simpler. He took something that was not his to take. That is what makes this story so unsettling. Einstein's body was supposed to vanish into private cremation. Instead, part of him was turned into an object, something to preserve, to study, to keep. Harvey did not begin with public approval. The brain was removed first. Permission became a problem later. Eventually, Einstein's son Hans Albert gave reluctant retroactive approval for scientific research. But by then, the line had already been crossed. The decision had already been made, and Harvey was now holding one of the most famous brains in human history. Harvey photographed the brain. He measured it, he preserved it, and over time it was cut into sections for study. Slides were made, samples were stored, fragments were cataloged. On paper, this could be explained as research, but the reality was stranger than that, because Harvey did not simply pass the brain into some clean institutional system. He kept control of it himself for years, then for more years, then for decades. And this is where the story stops feeling like medicine and starts feeling like obsession. Einstein's brain did not remain in one sacred laboratory. It moved through Harvey's personal life. It sat in jars. It followed him through career trouble and professional decline. Harvey lost his position at Princeton, but he did not give the brain up. He carried it with him, across states, through private homes, through ordinary rooms that had no business holding a piece of Einstein. That may be the strangest part of the entire story. The brain of Albert Einstein did not spend its whole afterlife in brilliant scientific institutions. Sometimes it was just there, hidden in plain sight, a historic object sitting inside the private mess of an ordinary man's life. Researchers did receive pieces over the years. Harvey mailed samples to selected scientists. Some hoped they might find a physical source of genius itself. Maybe Einstein's brilliance had left a visible mark in the folds of his brain. Maybe greatness had anatomy. That question is part of why the story survived so long. People wanted the brain to mean something, not just morally, scientifically. If Einstein had changed physics, maybe his brain could explain the man behind the equations. Years later, different studies would claim unusual structural features. Some researchers argued parts of the brain were different in ways that might relate to mathematical thinking or spatial reasoning. But the findings were debated, and no study could fully solve the mystery people wanted solved. Einstein's brain did not become a key to genius. It became a symbol of humanity's need to explain greatness after the fact. Meanwhile, the story itself kept getting stranger. Decades passed, and the brain's journey became almost mythological. At one point, Harvey transported pieces of it in containers during road trips. Some accounts describe it being carried in cookie jars, not in a grand museum convoy, not under ceremonial protection, but like a secret too strange to explain to anyone outside the car. The brain of Albert Einstein had become both priceless and absurd. And then came the reporters. Journalists began digging into what had happened after Einstein's death. Where had the brain gone? Who had it? One pathologist been allowed to hold on to it for so long? Eventually, Harvey was tracked down in Wichita, Kansas. He was older now, smaller somehow, less like a villain than a man who had built his life around one impossible possession. And still, he had it, still preserving it, still living inside the story he had created. That is what makes Harvey difficult to categorize. Was he a thief, a scientist, a guardian, an obsessed man who convinced himself history had chosen him? Maybe he was some of all of them. But whatever explanation you choose, one fact never changes. Einstein did not ask for this. His family did not begin with this plan. And the brain's strange afterlife began with an act of unauthorized removal. In the years that followed, pieces of Einstein's brain ended up in research collections and museum contexts. Tiny preserved sections became artifacts. Something once deeply human became something people could display, analyze, and debate. But the biggest mystery was never hidden in the tissue itself. It was hidden in the decision, the moment one man looked at the body of Albert Einstein and decided history would be better if he took a piece of it for himself. Maybe he thought he was preserving genius. Maybe he thought science would justify the act. Maybe he believed the brain of Einstein belonged to the world more than it belonged to the dead man who carried it. But that is the danger in stories like this. The line between scientific curiosity and personal violation can disappear very quickly when the subject is important enough. Einstein spent his life trying to explain the universe. After his death, the world tried to explain Einstein, and one doctor made sure that search would never be simple, clean, or dignified again.